In a recent issue of the Morning Download Personal Finance newsletter, we wrote about Denmark's controversial new cow tax. It's the world's first carbon tax on livestock. And the responses we got were pretty overwhelmingly negative. People didn't like it. And granted, most people that subscribe to the newsletter aren't from Denmark, but they don't like the idea, and a lot of them are European actually that subscribe to the newsletter. A lot of people don't like the idea of putting a tax on agriculture. We've seen in the news in the past year a lot of protests, namely in France and in the Netherlands, of farmers and in Germany protesting against any kind of increased regulation, tax, or fee on farming in general. And so this is the first ever the world's first ever carbon tax on livestock. It remains to be seen whether it will be effective, but I want to discuss what is happening in Denmark and how it may affect future farmers around the world. So the cost is about $100 per cow annually. So Denmark is a major exporter of pork and dairy, and it's the first country to ever put a carbon emissions tax on agriculture. This is part of Denmark's ongoing goals to meet ongoing effort to meet certain climate change goals. And in Denmark, as in a lot of places, agriculture makes up the majority of the emissions for CO2. Globally, agriculture makes up about 1/3 of all greenhouse gas emissions, and livestock accounts for about 12% of global emissions. So this is Denmark's attempt to help that. So starting in 2035, the fee on having a dairy cow will increase to about $107. And then that will be going up to $241 in 2035. Although farmers are getting a subsidy to help them with the transition of up to 60%. So in the next 10 years, they're going to have to pay increasing fees up to $241. So how expensive is that? A dairy cow generally will cost between $1,500 and $2,100 to buy, and then another $2,000 a year to feed. So it's about a 10%, 11% increase in the fee in the amount they're going to have to pay every year to maintain the dairy cow, which may increase the cost of milk in Denmark and make Denmark less competitive in the European market, which is one of the reactions that farmers have had. It's been a mixed response from the agricultural sector in Denmark. The Danish dairy industry welcomed the agreement, but some farmers, I'm sure a lot of farmers, were not happy about the additional cost. One CEO of a big food company in Denmark, Arla Foods, said that he is against taxing farmers who reduce emissions. He wants to reward farmers that are doing a great job of reducing emissions. So what do you think of any tax on farmers in your country or your state where you live? We've seen things in other places, like in the United States, that Florida just enacted a law against what do you call it, fake meat or lab-produced meat, because they want to protect the dairy farmers in Florida against this new kind of meat, the synthetically produced meat. We've seen lawsuits against the almond milk industry and the soy milk industry for using the word milk, because dairy farmers want to protect their brand. They spend a lot of money on branding the Got Milk campaign, getting people to like milk and stay with milk. Interesting, as a side note, that campaign, the Got Milk campaign that ran for 10 or 12 years, didn't increase the consumption of milk. Before that campaign, the consumption of milk was going down, and then they came out with that campaign, which is widely considered to be one of the most successful marketing campaigns of all time. And it didn't increase the consumption of milk, but it stopped the decrease in consumption of milk. And now the consumption of milk ever since that campaign has been flat. So this new dairy tax, this agricultural tax, is very controversial, trying to address problems of agricultural emissions, which some debate that it's not even a problem that needs to be solved. So it's challenging, and it's kind of pitting the farmers against the regulators and the state. And the big question is, will it be effective? Will it hurt the farmers? Will it do anything to help CO2 emissions in Denmark? And what will happen to the price of milk? So I'd love to hear your feedback. I want to cover this because it was so controversial in the newsletter, and I'm sure we're going to be seeing more and more news about this in the coming months and the coming years as it's becoming a more controversial topic and one that seems to be pushed more and more by governments around the world, particularly in Europe. Do you agree with this or do you disagree? I'd love to hear comments down below. Thanks for watching.